Hey everybody, Matthew here from MiniWargaming.com, and it's time for another Sit and Talk. This is the show where you ask me questions and I answer them. This week's topic is actually an Ask Me Anything. So this goes back to how I've normally done my Sit and Talks, where you ask me anything about anything and I will maybe answer it. So I do have to put the disclaimer at the beginning of this one because I haven't read through the questions. So I don't know if there's questions related to religion or politics or things that generally could be a bit more controversial. So if you are easily offended by those things, I suggest you don't watch the show and just watch one of the previous episodes where I cover a specific topic, because then you're guaranteed that the entire show contains only questions and answers about that topic. Next week's show, we'll go back to the other format where I have a specific topic. I looked at the topic suggestions and picked one, and it is about business. So I'm keeping this general for a reason. If I get too specific, then there's not as many questions that can be asked, and it's harder to fill up the entire show. So it's anything related to business, whether it's about running a wargaming business. I know we talked about mini wargaming specifically last week, so if you want to ask more questions about that, that's fine. But it's really more like business questions about maybe like what I think about certain things that Games Workshop does, or Privateer Press, or other companies, or starting a business, or the experiences that I've had. Whatever you want to ask, as long as it's at least semi-related to the idea of talking about business. That'll be next week's topic. And of course, if you want to suggest another topic, there will be a link in the description below that'll say topic suggestions. Click that, go to that place, and either if you don't see one already submitted that you want, you can submit it, and make sure you upvote any of the ones that you see that you actually want covered as well, and that will kind of form. I'm not sure how long I'll do these specific topics for, because maybe eventually we'll run out of really good ones that could actually fill up an entire show, but I'm not quite sure. Anyways, so this week is about anything. So let's just jump right into the questions. XV88 Mitch, upvote for a calendar. I don't care, XV88 Mitch, that you got 67 thumbs up on that comment, and I don't care that Steve is totally willing to do it. I don't think we're going to be making a calendar. And you're welcome, internet. Orky Benji, if Games Workshop changed their policies towards independent retailers and online sales, would you reopen your store? That's a really good question, because I like the idea of having a store. I just enjoy it. Now, the short answer to the question would be probably not, and that's mainly because of where we're located. In Welland, it's just not really viable for a hobby store to be profitable. And so therefore, we would have to, really push the online sales as well, which of course we could become profitable again. But I don't know. I really don't know. The Games Workshop, now let's make a couple assumptions here. First off, they allow online sales. 2, another policy would be that they allow you to sell outside of your country. That's a big one right there. So I could sell products to the United States. Overseas, as soon as you get into those kind of shipping complications and you're selling other people's products, it's usually not profitable to sell overseas. If you're selling your own products, then you have a much larger profit margin, and so you can eat the shipping costs, the extra shipping costs, because you're expanding to a new market. And if there's a lot of sales over there, then of course you can open up another location on that side too. I think the answer would be no, but it would be something I'd definitely be interested in. Maybe in the future, just for fun, to kind of start a side part. I'd probably actually open it as a separate business from Mini Wargaming. So there would be some store that wouldn't be called Mini Wargaming, although it would be affiliated with Mini Wargaming, obviously. Because there have been some niceties about no longer having an online store, besides all the money being tied up in inventory and all the extra expenses and the headaches. Besides all of that, it's nice to kind of be free from the idea that our videos need to kind of have that double dipping idea of where we have the video out for Vault members, or to get people into the Vault, but also to push people to buy products on our store. For example, we wouldn't want to cover games that we didn't sell in our store, because if we covered them, we knew that people on our site would be interested in those games, and it only made sense to then sell those in our store, but that required more investment of that kind of inventory. So it's kind of nice not to have to think about that. Like, for example, we could cover games that are no longer in print. Like how Steve is still doing Old World Wars, at least for the time being, the 8th edition fantasy. That's no longer an official Games Workshop game. It is now officially out of print. And the longer the time passes, the less we'll actually be able to get access to what we need for it, like models on square bases, for example. We really have to just rely on what we already have. Games like Battlefleet Gothic or Necromunda or Blood Bowl, we would never have considered covering those before, and now we can consider covering them. Now, I'm not saying we're going to, I'm just saying that it opens up those possibilities of being able to do that. And so that it's kind of nice to have that freedom. It also allows us to kind of no longer be competing with a lot of places that we would, technically maybe in the future work with. If we ever decided to start selling advertising on our website, for example, it would be hard to approach another store and say, hey, do you want to buy advertising from us, when they know that we also have a store. So there's a conflict of interest there. So all I'm trying to say is, if I did do it, I'd probably do it as a separate entity, and it had to be in a different location. So, but the other nice thing about having a local store was that it kind of is also a club for players to come in and play, and we're able to then find people that could be in our battle reports that were more local. And that's something that would still be nice, especially for games like War Machine, Age of Sigmar, Infinity, those games, the secondary games basically to 40K, where we don't have as many people coming from long distances. We can fill up our 40K battle report schedule just fine, months in advance, but those other ones are a little more challenging. So if we had a club, we could kind of create a player base. We could attract the local players and encourage them to paint their models and to get more into the game and to be able to be in battle reports. So that would be nice too. So the answer is probably not, but I would definitely be interested in doing that. Vash1016, Matt, I'm sure you know better than me, but I wanted to just comment on Mini Wargaming's current method of content output. After getting through 30-ish Warzone Apothis games, I can safely say that too much of a good thing is Warzone Apothis. I was wondering if you guys had plans on possibly toning down the rushed tone of your bat reps to give a better experience to the viewers. Something that Tabletop Tactics does is adding in weather effects to the opening of the video while showing dynamic shots of the armies. Striking Scorpion adds a narrative feel by adding in quotes and subtext to each bat rep. I know I'm only a bronze member, so my opinion is not that important. That's not true. But I think it would do you guys some good to play less games at a higher quality and really be able to learn the rules and tactics of the armies you are focused on, while adding in quality effects and camera angles, all the while not rushing to get the game done so that you can play another bat rep for the vault. As you have so many producers, maybe it's worth it to film one 2,000 point game and really go for a good looking, fun to watch cinematic experience. And if time allows, film a smaller Zone Mortalis or Kill Team bat rep to toss out at some point on a slow week. Just thoughts. Love your work. Just hoping for some higher quality stuff now that quantity is well covered. All those are really good points, and I heavily agree with what you're saying. There's also some things that you have to take into consideration, which is why we do the way we do. So I'll kind of throw that out there, and then I'll talk about what you're saying. The reason that your idea is hard to implement is because essentially we would be having our battle report output. Because right now we're able to, with our current method, except for narrative campaigns, not Warzone Apothis narrative campaign, I mean like the old school narrative campaigns where we put more narrative into them. We can get 2 battle reports done if we play like 2 1,500 point games, and we don't have time to add in all that stuff during the actual filming of it because we're working on an 8-hour schedule and have to get that done. And I agree, that does sacrifice some quality in what the games could be if they were more like 1750, 1850, 2,000 points. If we could focus more on the armies beforehand and all of that. If we all of a sudden went up to 2,000 points and we're only able to film one in, even if we could get that secondary game in, let's forget about the secondary game first off. Let's say they were only able to film one game. That's half the number of battle reports. So essentially doubling the cost of making a battle report, which is a huge economic move. And so eventually, you're right, that has to happen. There has to be some sort of tipping point where we have enough vault members, where we have enough excess money to say, hey, you know what, it's time to do this. The problem is there's a schedule that we have to keep to that people expect. If all of a sudden I were to say, hey, let's do higher quality battle reports, but you're only going to have half as many, so instead of 8 40K battle reports a week, you're going to have 4, for example, you can bet that a lot of people would be disappointed in that. Furthermore, my theory, which is only a theory, would be that it would overall contribute less to the vault. So for example, let's say, and I'm just going to make up numbers here, so they're not anything related to the numbers that we have. Let's say each pair of battle reports right now contributes 50 people to the vault, and I'm just making it up. And we do 4 of those pairs per week, so that would be 200. And let's say we went down to 2 high quality, and that 50 went up to 75. So we had a much higher increase, like a 50% increase in each battle report chunk, but we're down to 2, and so that 75 times 2 is 150 rather than the 200 we used to have. And so there's less people per battle report signing up in the other one, but overall there's more that are going out. And then we use the same amount of time and cost, and all of a sudden we have less people signing up for the vault. And so you can see how that's kind of that's a normal business thing. That's actually the when you consider pricing products, Do I want to sell 2 at $100 or 4 at $50? Or maybe as soon as I hit 5, it'll no longer, it won't give that increase. It'll actually start to decrease. There's a certain price point, in this case, quality or quantity, that will hit a point where it no longer makes sense to do that. And you never really know what it is until you try it. But the problem is once we start doing something, if we have to go back from it, then it could be backlash to that as well. Whenever you make changes, there's always going to be a camp of people who don't want those changes. They'd rather somebody else, as much as they might say, yeah, I'd love higher quality battle reports, but don't mess with how many go out. Because essentially we'd have to do that. We'd have to put out less battle reports in order to do what you're suggesting. Now, the other way that we could get around that, and these are thoughts that I've had in the past, is like you said, you play a bigger game, put more time into it, and then when you only have an hour or 2 left at the end of the day, and you can use that to film another series like Kill Team or some discussion videos or like the Who Would Win kind of series. Those things are much quicker to pump out, and then those videos can be put separately. So a producer makes a large one, a 2,000 point game, and a Kill Team. Let's just say Kill Team, for example. And then with another player, they play another 2,000 point game and a Kill Team. And so then we pair up those 2,000 point games together in one show and those 2 Kill Teams in another show. I wouldn't want it to be that the free one's a 2,000 point and Kill Teams for the Vault, or vice versa, because they just don't match up, and it actually doesn't get as many Vault members that do that. So you're right. I think we need to find ways to add more quality to them. And we are working on that, of course. That's why Dave's been working on the studios. We've been working on better miniatures, other things that we can do that don't cost us time in the battle reports. But at the same time, we got to find that balance, really. And I always talk about that, right? The quality side and the quantity side. You can't go pure quality because then you just spend too much time and you can't put enough of them out. And then you just don't make any money off of that. And you can't go pure quantity because then people don't like your battle reports and then you don't get any Vault signups. So you have to find that midpoint. But you always have to kind of push to see how close to, because kill, maim, burn. Totally on topic. And so it's just tough. You have to find that point. But you're right. You're totally right. We can definitely put more into the battle reports, and this is something that we have to keep looking at. The narrative campaigns kind of give me a way to do that, because with the narrative, when I film narrative battle reports, I relax the restriction of needing to get 2 done in a day. I used to try to get 2 done in a day, but I found that now on average we get 1, maybe 1.5 done per day. And so we can put a lot more time into those. But those ones get so many more Vault signups that it just makes sense that we're allowed to spend a lot more money on them. And so that just totally makes sense. So it's tough business decisions, because there's always the question, and there's not a right answer either. There's somewhere out there that's a perfect equilibrium. We'll never know that we've got it because we can only look at where we are. We can't look at where we would have been if we did this or that. Like I always say, you have to go into a parallel universe where everything is equal except for that one change, and then you could actually accurately say, yes, we should have done that. But we can't do that, at least not with the technology we have today. And so it's a tough decision, and definitely people are asking for this kind of thing, so it's influencing the way we're thinking about it. So we'll have to see what we can do for that. Zam664, I've noticed that you have really gotten into Psykers with both your Tyranids and Tzeentch. Why the interest in Psykers? Well, it started with Tyranids, when like the new Neurothropes and stuff came out. As I started playing around with them, I found just kind of how potent they can be. It's still a little random because it is harnessing warp charges and all of that. So you have the Zoanthropes with their Spirit Leech, and then the chance to roll something useful like Catalyst, or the Horror, or Psychic Scream, all those kind of things. And with Tzeentch, is just because I'm preparing for a narrative campaign that has Tzeentch in them, it just makes sense that I have to play some games, and if you're playing Tzeentch, then you have to play with Psykers, because that's just what Tzeentch is. Like, it's not even like I have to, as in like that's the best way to play them. That's the only way to play them. Everything on Tzeentch is Psykers. Like all your HQ choices are Psykers. All your troop choices are Psykers. Most of your heavy support choices are Psykers. And then you have your elites and fast attack, which aren't, but you can't build an entire army out of them. It just wouldn't make any sense. So Tzeentch has to be played in a Psyker way in order to be competitive. So that just made sense right there. Lucas37, what do the staff do when they go out together? I actually don't know.
Eat.
You eat?
Sleep.
And
No, mostly eat.
so you go out and eat. There you go, there's your answer. Oh, I've got a new peanut gallery. You notice that room is blue now? It's a new painting room. Chris has actually moved offices. And now Leland, Quirk, and Steve are in there. And then we have a painter that we've hired who will be coming next month, and I'll introduce you to him when he's here. He'll be in there as well. So we got 4 peas in a pod. Maybe it's a little crammed, but no, it's actually more space than they had in their other office. And it's just better organized too.
You ever hear about a powder keg just slowly burning down? That's what we got here.
It's to encourage them to be more in their studios than at their desks. Right? Right?
I don't understand that word.
Sure, let's go with that.
All right. Aru25, hey Matt, business advice, get more Tactica. A lot of you, you're giving advice to me. Okay, I see. I thought you were asking a question about business advice. Get more Tactica. A lot of YouTube users would buy into the Vault if you had more sections like Shadow of the Warp. Now, the thing is, that's a great suggestion, but you can't say a statement like that because you really have no idea. And I can tell that you have no idea because I have no idea. I don't know what'll get people to buy into the Vault until I try it. And that we have to experiment. I can tell you what we do currently and what we've tried in the past and what has worked and what hasn't, but there's no way you could predict what'll get people into the Vault. We just don't know until we try it. So you are excited about the idea of Tactica, but you absolutely, and I'm not offended by this, I'm not mad at you or anything. I hope that doesn't come across that way. I'm just trying to make a point about making business decisions. You have no idea that that's actually even good advice. Unless you're running a business like ours and you've done it and it's worked, and then you're like, yeah, you totally got to do this. Then that would be good business advice. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying that we have no idea if it's a good idea until we try it. And I've done the Shadow on the Warp and stuff like that, and maybe you're surprised to find out, you'll be surprised to find out that it didn't get as many Vault signups as you might think. The battle reports have tried and true been our most productive thing to get Vault members, and the narrative campaigns, which are essentially just better battle reports, have done even better. So everything else that we've done pretty much does not measure up to the quantity of Vault members that battle reports get, and not just because of how many we put out. I'm talking about even on a per battle report method. Certain shows might get like more, but they don't go out as often, and if we try to do them more often, it just wouldn't make sense to do those shows more often. But overall, battle reports are our bread and butter. So is Tactica a good idea? Maybe. It's totally something that we could try. And I'm not saying we're not going to try it, don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that you can't make a statement saying a lot of YouTube users would buy into the Vault if you had more sections like Shadow on the Warp. So I started my Tyranid army and got Vaults because of that section and battle reports. If you did a fluff Tactica video for every army, you would get more signups. It's a good suggestion. I suggest you start with the big one like Eldars and Necrons, how to use them, how to fight against them. It is easy to do. Use your strategy of putting about 25% on YouTube and measure Vault signups. When people sign into the Vault, you should add a question about what YouTube video you like the most before sign up. We're actually able to track about 40 to 45% of people who sign up to the Vault according to what they were interested in. So we're able to we don't have to ask that question. We can track it. And so that's kind of nice. We do get that kind of information. So a little less than half of them were able to tell which video they were specifically looking at watching when they became a Vault member. And not just because it's the first thing they watched, but the other tracking methods as well. And then the other 50 to 55%, we can see what kind of banner ads they click on, or some of them we actually have no idea because they might just type miniwargaming.com and then click on sign up for the Vault kind of thing. Vincent72, dear Matt, who on the Mini Wargaming team would you say is the best player at 40K? Also, who is the most casual and the most competitive? The best player? Good question. Steve might think he is, but he's just playing Necrons. So that kind of just... What, you think I'm intimidated?
No, I'm just curious.
All right. I think I'm the best player.
Safe answer.
Okay.
Now, if you're talking about those 3 guys, if you just want to look at them,
Just look at us.
Yeah, who wants to look at them, right? Well, Quirk is the least experienced, so obviously we can't place him first, not yet.
The highest win rate.
You had the highest, yeah, okay. After what, 15 games?
20.
20 games, that's great. It's really hard to say. I would, because all of them are tactical players. Like I'm honestly trying to seriously think of this question. I obviously don't want to have the answer to this. They can all be tactical players. They can also play to fluff because that's a requirement for playing in like narrative campaigns and stuff, is being able to look at your army and kind of fluff it up and less competitive. The most casual would have to go to Dave, not because he doesn't try to play tactically or whatever like that, but because he just enjoys I would say the most out of everybody. But then again, I really like the narrative stuff, but they like the narrative stuff. Everybody here, and it's kind of a requirement to be able to make battle reports for us, needs to be able to be competitive, but also be able to be casual. And this is not just a political answer. I'm actually trying to, like a politically correct answer. I'm trying to figure out what I would actually say. And you can't just have a tournament to find out, because there's no balance in 40K. So you'd have to have like a really extensive tournament where everybody plays like 10 different armies. And so you have to kind of prove that you're overall really good at it, not just that you're good at your one army. So like everybody would have to try Necrons, Eldar, Tyranids, Space Marines, or something like that, and go up again. It would be very extensive to find out who the best 40K player would be. Any game would have to do that. Like, it's one thing to win all the time with your army, but you have to prove you're the ultimate player. Like, I think there should be a StarCraft 2 tournament, maybe that already has happened. Or in order to win the tournament, you actually have to go through the different brackets of playing all 3 races and all the different kinds of matchups, and then really kind of rate that together. And like, yeah, you can hone your skills as one, but the ultimate player is the one that can do all of them well. So yeah. Cool guys who sit at home, what is your best fan present Mini Wargaming has ever received? Don't worry, I have never given you, your staff, or your company a gift, so this is not fishing for compliments question. Well, I'd have to say, I got one right here. I've actually had it for a couple weeks, but I keep forgetting. I'll put it on, and then I will read. I gotta take my glasses off. There we are. How's it going, guys?
Oh, the beanie just seals the deal.
Yeah. All right. So, see if you can take it seriously now. Hi, please open and use in one of the sit and talk shows. Oh man, this is hard to talk. How do you guys talk with these? There's been talk about Matt's facial hair in the show, so to help him come to equal level with the rest of the crew. I think this brings me above the rest of the crew. Here's the instant solution to the problem: tactical beard. Unlike normal beards, does not need growing, can be used with minimum notice and then discarded when no longer useful without using a razor. Can also be used several times. That would be hard to do with normal beard. Best regards, a fan of the show. He actually didn't include his name, so I don't know who sent me this. Man, this is great. What do you guys think?
It looks natural.
It's totally natural, right?
Totally natural.
No. Are we about to get robbed?
It's not a ski mask, it's a beard, man.
Oh, someone gonna get shanked.
Well, I think I have the best beard in the office now. Okay, I'm taking it off. Oh, it ruined my hair. Okay. Whew, that's cool though. Thank you, anonymous fan. Oh, I forgot to put my glasses back on though. Hold on. Oh. 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 There we go. That completes the look. There. Is it better with glasses? It's better with glasses.
That's more Matthew.
Yeah, yeah. This is what I would look like with a beard that's not the same color as my hair. And a beanie.
Manly.
Very, actually, it is pretty. I
Check out your beard, dude.
I can't, you do it all the time. Because you never know what you'll find in it, right? Ooh, snack. Some food from lunch. So there you go, cool guys. Now, in all seriousness, we've received a lot of different gifts. I'm not going to specifically name a few, because what will probably happen is somebody who sent us a gift, who I haven't forgotten necessarily, but just didn't name, might be like, oh, they didn't mention my gift. So we've received lots of cool stuff: models, custom models, dioramas, pictures that people have drawn, and we really appreciate them. So thank you for that. Rezayal, hey there, Matt. Been a while since I commented and have a couple, if it's okay. Here goes. Leading from last week's topic, what's the story behind the building you guys have been in for the most of your career now? It almost seems its own character there, and I sometimes think of you guys as the Ghostbusters, and it's your fire station. Much love for the Mini Wargaming headquarters. This is an old building. It originally started off as the administrative offices for the steel factory that was across the road that is no longer there. I believe it was for that one specifically. I think it was for Atlas Steels. My grandfather, my mom's side, actually worked here. And upstairs down the other end. So that was that. And then it was bought by the city of Welland and became the Welland City Hall. And then it was privately sold, or sold to a private individual, and it's been passed around a few times. And it's just been leased out as individual offices, or there's been dance studios. There's been the school has had like one class in it in the past and all of that. So it's gone through a lot of different iterations. We currently lease about half to 2/3 of the main floor, and then a little storage room in the basement. But that's about it. I don't know about the future of it. In the past, I've been anxious to get out of here because the building's so old, but now I'm getting attached to it, and especially now that we've been building studios in it, we're going to be in it for the next few years at least, because buying a building just doesn't make financial sense until we have the ability to do so without having an enormous mortgage kind of thing. So, and you really have to be certain that you want to be where you are when you buy a building commercially, because it's hard to sell if you ever do need to get rid of it. Second is a quick rules thing. Have you paid attention to the buzz over the Iron Hands rules debate where players claim they can get a 1+ Feel No Pain on an HQ? I've seen that. And it's interesting because if you haven't followed it, basically like Iron Hands get +1 of their Feel No Pain, and then there's a War Gear that gives +1 Feel No Pain, and then there's a Warlord trait that gives +1 Feel No Pain. And so if you find a way to give them a 4+ Feel No Pain, like Endurance, for example, then that's +1, +1, +1, and it becomes 3 + 2 + 1+. And unlike armor saves and characteristic tests and all that, Feel No Pain is not a save, and so it doesn't follow those rules. And so it never says anywhere that a die roll of 1 is always a failure, and a die roll of 6 is always a success when it comes to Feel No Pain. And so people are saying because they can get it to 1+, essentially it's impossible to kill the guy. So you'd have to use like instant death. I'm sorry, I got from that beanie, I got like stuff in my eye. So unless you use something that's like a destroyer weapon or instant death, you won't be able to get around that. I would house rule it instantaneously that a 1 would be an auto fail. And realize rules is written, you could get the 1+, but that's just kind of ridiculous. There are 1+s in the 40K universe. There's one in particular I think of, which is the one of the ethereals, one of the named ethereals in the Tau. I just played him at the Aunva or something like that. I can't remember which one it is. But he has a rule that when he's hit with a weapon, that he ignores it on whatever its AP is or above. So like if it's an AP 3 weapon on a 3+, it just ignores it. And it even specifically says that means that AP 1 weapons will not be able to hurt them, because on a 1+ he ignores it. And so essentially it's better for you to hit him with lower AP weapons like AP 6 or AP 5. And so you could argue that since that one says that there's a 1+ roll that's not negated, you couldn't argue it for Feel No Pain. So I could totally get, there's totally rules as written, it seems that the 1+ would not be able to, like a 1 would not be a fail. But I would house rule it. Now, the thing is though, the chances of it happening are pretty slim, because you have to have the Warlord trait, War Gear, and be Iron Hands. So you could get down to the 2+ really easily, but you'd have to like roll your Warlord trait and get that. And then you'd have to get Endurance off, or something that gives them a 4+ Feel No Pain. And so it's just not super likely, because you could try to deny the Endurance, or you could, there's ways around that. And so yeah, I think I would just house rule to get rid of the 1+ part. Eddie Spirell. So I've heard of the term being used by GW lately of we make the models, you make the rules, or we make the models, you balance the game. What are your thoughts on this? I don't know if has Games Workshop actually said that. I know they say we're a model company first and a rules company second, and people are like, well, why are you called Games Workshop and not Model Workshop? It's like, oh, come on, it's just a name. Like, who cares? And I agree that they're definitely models first, rules second. I don't agree that that's necessarily the best kind of mantra to have. Maybe having the idea that our very primary focus is making the best models that we can. And that would be great if there's all sorts of other games people are playing that they want to kind of use these models for. But in the end, you need to have a fantastic game as well, because that's why people buy the models. Very few people buy the models just because they're cool. In fact, I would be surprised if there's hardly any that would do it without a game structure in place. Because then who else would be around to appreciate said models that you've painted up, because there's no game associated with it. And so there would be other players. So yeah, I don't think it's a good mantra to have to say, screw the rules, we're just a models company. I don't necessarily think that that's what they're saying. I think they're just trying to say that, our primary focus is making great models. But leaving the rules to the public is not necessarily the best tactic. I know some people have talked about how it's some people think it's brilliant with Age of Sigmar, how they're leaving it to the community to balance it. But they haven't necessarily left it to the community to balance it. They haven't fully released everything yet, so we don't know what they're coming out with. There's been rumors actually of them coming out with some sort of system that allows you to build armies with that system, so we'll have to wait and see what that is. And I do definitely think that they should be running tournament systems and all that, similar in vein to at least what Privateer Press does, but even more so. They've got the manpower for it to do something even on the level of Magic the Gathering. Having some sort of system like that, I think that would be tremendously good. But they'd have to focus a lot more on balancing the game, which they could totally do. They could totally do, but they don't. So that's a huge disappointment on my end, is that they focus so little on making the rules better, because it wouldn't, out of all the money that they put into it, it wouldn't cost them that much money compared to everything else. Like, the cost of making models is huge. The number of people you need to employ, the machinery, the molds, everything. It's very expensive to make models. Making rules is cheap. That's why we see so many people making their own rule set, because it's cheap. And they've got the kind of the structure in place to find the right people to write these rules. Like, obviously they have people doing it. And so just putting a little bit more effort into FAQing and errating and making a tournament set of rules where it kind of they have their 40K rule set, and then they have their tournament rule set, which restricts certain things and kind of like what Magic the Gathering does. They continually come up with new cards and all that, but they then come up with the restrictions of how you're allowed to bring them into tournaments and all that. I think they could totally do that. It can never be quite as balanced as Magic the Gathering or games like that, because they're a lot more simple. But, and I don't mean Magic the Gathering is a simple game for simpletons or anything like that. I just mean that Games Workshop or Warhammer 40K has so many armies and so many models and so many special rules. It needs to be that way to be interesting, that it would be hard to get full balance. But they could still, if they have people running these tournaments and collecting the data like Magic the Gathering, then they could see what is being used and what is always winning. And then they could adjust the rules for that to nerf the things that are used all the time, and the things that are never used, they can do some buffs to them. And that sells more models for them. It gets people more into the game. It improves the competitive scene, which, while I agree is not the main thing for games, the narrative and the fluff side is such a strong point for them. It still would improve their player base. It would get more people into stores, and then stores would sell more. It would just be awesome for the market altogether. So the fact that they don't have any support for that, I think, is a huge mistake. Like a big, big mistake. Because they could outclass Privateer Press and Corvus Belli anytime, not because they're better than them, but because they've got the money and manpower to do it. And they could do like what Wizards of the Coast does and just kind of push that kind of scene. Which some people might disagree and say, well, I don't want people to become more tournament goers, but at the same time it would help balance the rule set a lot more. And it would just give that other aspect of the game. So I definitely think that you could see more of that. Also, I've heard that GW said codexes are the thing of the past. That's a rumor, that they're going to be getting rid of codices for 40K. Do you feel it would be in the best interest of 40K if they created an app like Age of Sigmar where all the rules for the armies are free and available so they can focus more on creating more models? That one I can't answer. I have no idea. Because we have different companies, some who sell their rules, some who give them away for free. You get Privateer Press, who sells their rules, Corvus Belli for Infinity, who gives them away for free. You can also buy the books, but really you don't have to. And they don't necessarily say, they don't try to make you, they provide them for free. And the question is, which is better? If you have on the one side, you have the free rule sets, which will allow more people to technically, theoretically, to get into the game because they don't have the cost of entry of the rule set. Then you have the other side where if you sell the rule set, two things happen. One, you make money off the rules, because that's a money maker, definitely. And two, it invests people even more into the hobby. When somebody has to buy their own rule book, like I remember when we were playing D&D as a group, I made it a requirement that each person had to buy their own player's handbook and any supplemental books they wanted for their characters, rather than me supplying them or having one or two that they shared. And the reason I did that is because I wanted them all to really get into it. And I knew one way to make them get into it is to force them to purchase something. None of them had any problem with this because they wanted to get into it. But if you think about it, somebody who's just borrowing somebody else's rule book or just downloading a free PDF, it's a lot less likely, or less likely, I should say, that they're going to be as invested in the game as somebody who made that purchase. So I think I would lean more towards the pay for the rules. Maybe parts of it could be free, like or at least easy to access, like how War Machine provides the cards or War Machine and Hordes provides the cards with all the rules on them. And when you buy the models, I like that concept. So they kind of find an in-between where they're selling the books, but you could actually get away without buying most of the books if you don't care about the fluff or you don't want to read it, by just buying the models, and you get the rules for those models. And then you just need the main rule book so that you have the core rules. And so they're kind of a hybrid in a sense, even though that's not technically free rules because you have to buy the models, but the rules come free with the models in a sense. So I like that idea. I like the War Machine's idea of providing the rules quasi-free as you buy the models, and then also selling the books as well. All right. Cheap Shot 795, what happened to Dark Potential? There is a Sit and Talk FAQ called What Happened to Dark, or something about Dark Potential, so I suggest you look that up. We're not doing it. I'm not sure if we'll ever do it, but there's no plans to. It's just our focus is on what's working for us. Death Jester 30, how close is the Tzeentch campaign from being released? I hope there is more of a focus on the Chaos Space Marine side of Chaos this time, as they have been lacking in your, not Dave's, narrative campaigns. My guess is they are up against their classic rivals, the Space Wolves. We're actually going to be doing another campaign before the Tzeentch campaign because there are some rumors that Tzeentch will be getting an update at the end of August or sometime in September. So we're going to be doing a shorter campaign to kind of fill in the gap. It gives us a bit more time to prepare for the Tzeentch one anyways. Is it going to focus? I can't tell you for sure yet, mainly because I don't know. Is it going to focus more on the Space Marine side or the Demon side? There's definitely, there should be both, but we'll have to wait and see. New Digital Blue, of all the people you have hired to paint, could you make a list of recommended painters? That's kind of dangerous because I still want to work with all the other painters too. So saying here are my favorites. Yeah, I think I'm going to avoid saying that, but you can kind of guess by going on Facebook and seeing the ones that we are. Basically, if we promote them, then most likely that would be on my list of recommended painters. Because, and if we've promoted them more than once, here's a real key. If you see them promoted multiple times, most likely they're on our recommended list. That's all I'll say. And now that doesn't mean that if they're only promoted once, they're not on our recommended list. If they're promoted at all, then they're obviously, they've done work for us. And they've gotten through the whole process of us accepting the work. But yeah, that's all. I just don't want to offend any of them that I might not quite say that they're my favorite and all of that. So if you want recommendations, you can email me, Matthew@miniwargaming.com, and I'll tell you which ones. But on a public place like this, I wouldn't really do that. Lucas37, 2 weeks off work? That sounds like a short amount of time. I get 5 fully paid weeks off. Now here, by law, it's 2 weeks. Obviously, a company can choose to contribute more than that. That's more of a typical thing to do once somebody's been working for more than for a longer time, to kind of give that benefit. But yeah, it's in Canada, it's 2 weeks paid vacation. It's actually required by law to make them take the 2 weeks too. So I don't know if we have ever tried to enforce that. I think it's always happened naturally, that just kind of here and there the days add up to 2 weeks. But technically by law, if we hit 2 weeks before the end of the year and an employee has come in every day, 5 days a week, then we'd have to force them to take those 2 weeks off, which is, I thought was interesting. I wonder, why would we have to force them to take the weeks off? And it must be protecting somebody somewhere, because they wouldn't have it as a law otherwise. Not that every law makes sense, but still. Warboss Enos. Hey Matt, hope you and all Mini Wargaming staff are doing well. I know you ain't answering questions about Age of Sigmar just yet, but I'm curious to know your first impressions, and is it a game you might like to try out? I'm still withholding judgment because there's still more stuff coming out. It seems to be a fun game. I haven't played it yet though, so I really can't tell you what I think about it until I actually try it. I can only tell you what people have told me, and I've learned that other people's perceptions of games are often different than my own. So they might say a certain thing about a game, and if I just kind of take that camp simply because they say it, it might actually not end up being how I feel about the game. So I really got to try it out for myself. Linus. Hey Matt, up for a quick fire round, just for fun. Which would or do you prefer, winter or summer? Definitely summer. I hate winter. Mayonnaise or hummus? Ooh, they're both good. I think I'd lean more towards mayonnaise. Leland or Steve? Just kidding. Don't actually answer that one. Watching clouds or watching waves? Why can't there be both? Like you're looking at the waves when there's clouds above. I'd have to probably say clouds. Reggae or classical music? Reggae is good, but classical music definitely wins. 5 Orc Knob bodyguards or a Carnifex in a Pokemon Pokeball? Definitely a Carnifex, and even if it's in a Pokemon ball. Potatoes or ice hockey? Potatoes. Thanks, Matt. I hope that was fun. Well, you tell me. Chosen Man 44. Any plans for mini wargaming merchandise? In other words, dice packs, t-shirts, etc. that could also be sent to the UK and elsewhere? No plans. We don't make hardly any money from merchandising, so sorry, I'm not really... having said that, I have always intended to get our UK Spreadshirt store up, but it's just such a low priority, not because you guys are in the UK and you're a low priority, but because we make so little money from selling t-shirts that it's just not on the top of my mind. 2, if GW does ditch the rules and codexes as is rumor, would Mini Wargaming look at themselves as being a focal point for a balance of the 40k universe? I'd probably say no. The problem with us choosing to kind of create our own set of house rules and balancing is that it excludes a large portion of our audience, because then you're guaranteed that there's a good chunk of your audience who won't want to watch your rules because you're playing them a certain way. I'd probably... I don't know what I would do. If 40k went the way of Age of Sigmar, I have no idea what I'd do. I'd try to play it as close to the existing rules as possible, or the rules not existing as in 7th edition, but the way that they come up with it, and try to work around that. 3, you guys are doing an awesome job and provide much needed entertainment and good times to those of us that can't be there. Thanks. Mr. Pinky Piggy, can I use Ankor Proc? He is an old GW data slate for a named Crew Shaper. His rules are from any Games Day, or from Games Day 2001. Can I legally field this? Legally, the answer would be no. However, there is nothing stopping you from talking to a friend when you play, saying, hey, can I field it? And having fun that way. But in a tournament, there's no way they'll allow that. Sticky Wicket. If you don't want people to thumb people's questions down, then why is it even a feature on the site? I like people thumbing down questions or comments on other videos. It's the sit and talks in particular. I'm just like, just thumb up the ones you want, and don't thumb down the ones that you don't want. Because I just randomly choose. I take the top 10 thumbed up questions, and then I just randomly choose after that, regardless of whether they were thumbed up or thumbed down. And so I like the feature overall, it's just not in the sit and talks. I don't have it in a site admin to be able to turn off that, thumbing down things just for certain videos. Blue Nose 345. Hi Matt, just wanted to say what a great service Mini Wargaming provides. I've recently become interested in 40k again because of Mini Wargaming. Awesome, thank you. I soon to become a vault member as I have qualified and soon to get a job. My question is, have you ever thought about inviting any of the other content makers such as Striking Scorpion or Tabletop Tactics to challenge yourself at 40k? Actually, yeah. I know when Dave goes out to the UK, he's going to be playing against Striking Scorpion. I was just over at Beasts of War. Now, a lot of these are far away, so it's pretty expensive to get them here, and most of them aren't super rich and able to just kind of cruise around wherever they want to, whenever they want to. Whereas like you might see that more with other YouTube producers in other markets where they have a lot more subscribers that are making more money, so collaborating makes more sense. Or actually a lot of them live over in California, which is true, and so it's not as much work to get together to collaborate. But yeah, I would love to. It's something I actually just recently, this past week, I thought, I should probably invite a few to see who can come out. And we wouldn't be able to pay for everybody's plane tickets and all that kind of stuff. That's the problem. So really, it would be like inviting them, and then they'd have to make the expense to get out here, which is why it's a little more difficult, because we're not making so much money that we can just kind of throw away all that thousands of dollars to fly people here and keep them here and feed them and all of that, and then entertain them and everything else. So we're just not able to do that. All right, one more question. Kunkel, can we get a tour of Mini Wargaming? Once the Fantasy Studio is done, I'm sure we can do a full tour. In the meantime, we have been posting open vaults where they've been showing you around what's been being worked on, so you can check that out. So in the vault, look for the show called Open Vault. It's behind the scenes, essentially. In the past couple, at least, and I think we're going to be doing another one very shortly, showing what we've been currently doing, so you'll get a feel of where everything is. But I'm in my mind, once the fantasy studio's done and once I'm going to be repainting a couple of these offices and kind of finishing that off, then we would need to do a full tour to kind of give everybody an update on what's going on. Okay, that's all the time we have for the free portion of the Sit and Talk, so thank you very much for watching. We're going to be doing another 30 minutes for our Vault members. That'll be at the link in the video description below. If you're not a Vault member, you can still click it, get a free 7-day trial, absolutely no obligations required. You just have to sign up, put in your credit card information. If you don't cancel, of course, it does automatically bill you, but there's a 30-day full money-back guarantee. So really you have like a 37-day trial because you could cancel in the 30 days after you are charged. And you get instant access to everything, no restrictions in the Vault. So we would love for you to try that out if you're not already a Vault member, because it really does help support us and to grow our business so we can make more videos, add more quality to videos and everything else. So thank you for watching and happy working.